Welcome to 2019 here at the Services Power Podcast, Servant Leaders. We are so excited to have another opportunity to speak into your life, but we also have the opportunity to partner with a great company called YumButter. YumButter churns mouth-rocking, world-changing nut butters in small batches that help fuel your dream and everyday adventure. They use only the highest quality organic nuts, seeds, and superfoods in their potions. Their revolutionary Go Anywhere resealable pouches are the ideal grab-and-go food for work, the gym, or trial. On top of that, they have a world-changing mission. When you buy YumButter, you feed a child in need through their buy one, feed one business model. They also show their dedication to Mother Earth through their certified B Corporation. Servant leaders, you're going to want to go out and check out YumButter.com. Those guys are fantastic. As a matter of fact, we might have an opportunity to have one of their leaders on the podcast with us very soon. Go hook those guys up here in 2019. We want you guys to be healthier, stronger, and better. And so we want to start this podcast and this year out right. We want to be legendary. I've got one of the legends in my personal life on this podcast with me this time around. His name is Josh Symonette. It is so exciting to have him on this thing. I want to remind you guys as we get ready to jump into this episode of a few things. Number one, we're going to be releasing a podcast every other Saturday from now throughout the rest of 2019. And as we grow, as you guys help us, wherever you're listening to this thing, iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Play, SoundCloud, Spreaker, wherever you're listening to this thing at, even if you're listening to this on the YouTube channel, wherever you're supporting us at, we're going to go every other Saturday. There's going to be a podcast. It's going to hit you. We're going to be rocking and rolling this year. But also, as we listen to this legendary podcast episode with Joshua Symonette, he's going to have a ton of passion. He's going to be fired up. However, the voice quality on this thing is not going to be super hot. There were some things going on with his audio on this side, but it's okay. I'm really excited about talking to you about Pastor Joshua Symonette. He's a former Redskin and Dolphin football player in the NFL and is a serious leadership junkie. Josh brings passion for leadership as a campus pastor, and he also helps support staff development. He's an innovative and creative thinker. He's highly motivated as a team player and leader. He's all about being a self-starter, a decision maker. He relates to any person, regardless of position, as a knack for finding solutions. And I think I found the solution to whether or not we can be legendary as servant leaders as we jump into this episode with Josh Symonette. Let's go. Welcome back to the podcast, Servant Leaders. Man, it is 2019. We are starting this year off right. And the person I got on the podcast today, listen, this is the reason why this young man is on the podcast. I got Josh Symonette on here, and everything that I want all of you guys to be, the servant leader that I desire for each and every one of you to be, this is who he was to me. Seeing something in somebody that they didn't know or realize or think about, or something's going on in their life that's clouding them, that's blocking them from being the person that they need to be. Josh Symonette unlocked that for me. He was a servant leader in a way for me that I can't really describe other than the way I'm describing the lifestyle of a servant leader to you guys. He's a pastor, and yes, he's a former NFL player, but he's not on here for that. He's on here because he is a visionary. He helped me see something. He gave me an opportunity, and here we are, Pastor Joshua Symonette. How in the world are you?
Hey, man, I'm doing good. First of all, big shout out to the audience and all those that are listening. Humble to be on this podcast with you, Lyle, and hopefully something that's shared today will be inspiring and helpful. But I'm doing great. It's a new year, and you really got a choice in terms of your response when it comes to how you're doing. I mean, yeah, you may have some physical things or some things might not be, like you want them to be, but it's all about, having a positive mentality, and, you can learn from everything and you can grow from any situation. So I'm feeling good about everything that's going on right now.
Hey, it is so good to have a growth mindset, a growth perspective when it comes to life. I got a growth perspective about all the things that you got going on in life. Josh, would you take some time and tell everybody what you're into, what you're all about, and what you got going on in life right now?
Yeah, Lau, I actually been working on this, man. I have some varied interests, and I think over the years, I have really kind of struggled to find a thread in all of those things. And so if you ask me what I'm about, I think the one sentence version of that is I'm a developer of people, places, and things. And to break that down or elaborate on that a little bit more is, I'm highly interested in the potential that I see in people, places, and things. And people, I mean, I think that's pretty self-explanatory in terms of people's potential and their talent and what they have to offer. Places would be environments. How can you create an environment or a setting for that potential to come alive? Those are the sort of things that I gravitate towards, and that's what I'm about. So the things that I read and the people that I'm in relationship with is it all has to do with like maximizing some sort of potential, and sometimes that potential is my own.
One of the favorite things that I like to hear about Joshua Symonette is when somebody refers to him as a leadership catalyst. Josh, would you talk to us about what the value is that a leadership catalyst would be for any servant leader out there?
Yeah, it's a good question. A little bit of backstory. I mean, I think the leadership catalyst was just kind of a title that I came up with because I really couldn't find anything else to describe what I wanted to bring. And basically, as someone who is a leader, leaders make things happen. So when you think about the word catalyst, you think about, something that happens to create a spark or to start something. And so as a leader, you make things happen, but you also need to be an initiator as well. You also need to be someone that can get things going. And so, I mean, that's pretty much who I am. Like I just talked about potential in people, places, and things and that sort of deal. I think I see that potential and I'm ready to activate it and move on it and kind of create some sort of catalytic, moment or movement in order to see that potential activated and come alive. And so, yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I describe a leadership catalyst, because you want people who are not sitting back and criticizing things. You want people looking at things critically and seeing how they can take an active role in making it better or taking it to the next level.
Josh, how would you coach somebody into going into a critical mindset without being overbearing, without trying to tear people down? I've experienced you as a catalyst in my own personal life, how you were able to be critically thinking and critically looking at elements of my life without tearing me down. How can we not be brutally honest, but be catalysts of change in the lives of other people?
Well, that's a really good question. And I mean, it's really hard to do. It's not something that I think is like a microwave approach where you can put it in for 30 seconds or a minute and it heats up and is ready to go. I think it takes time. I think it takes a certain level of intentionality and practice. But most importantly, I would say the number one thing that people respond to is authenticity. And I think when people realize that you're authentic and that you truly care about them, you truly care about what they have going on. I believe it was Maya Angelou who said, people will forget about most of what you said and done, but they won't forget about how you made them feel. And so I think that's hugely important in how you're interacting with people. And I think if people know that you're authentically for them, I mean, you can tell them whatever you want to tell them because they know that it's coming from a good place. And even if it's tough criticism, even if it's hard to hear, it can be digestible. One, because hopefully you're presenting it that's helpful. But then most importantly, they realize like, hey, this person is sharing this information with me or they're challenging me in this way because they are for me. And hey, at the end of the day, people can sniff out the lack of authenticity. So they'll know if it's real or not.
Servant leaders, the way we need to be starting out 2019 is being authentic. This isn't about being weak or punkish. This is about being a person that actually cares with strength, cares with intentionality, cares in an authentic way. And guess what? We all know the people that don't care. We can see them coming a mile away. And if we don't authentically care about people, we've said it so many times on this podcast, we will know, they will know, and then the way we serve them won't be real. It won't yield us the results that we are wanting in our service ability, in the way we live and the way we work around other people. Speaking about things that we've talked about on the podcast, in episode 9 of this podcast, we talked about grit as a servant leader. Josh, would you tell us about the kind of grit that you had to have as an undrafted rookie in the NFL and how it shaped your service to your community today?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I just don't know how you accomplish much in life without having some level of grit. But as it relates to personal story, I think it really started when I was 19 years old. I was a sophomore in college, and I had this dream that I wanted to play in the NFL. I had it since I was a young boy, and I was at this really small school in the middle of nowhere, Tennessee. It's a school called Tennessee Tech, and not talking bad about my school, but I mean, there isn't much there. It's a town called Cookeville, Tennessee, in between Knoxville and Nashville on I-40. Man, it's not an NFL powerhouse. As a matter of fact, I was in school at the same time as Peyton Manning. And so everybody on weekends was going to the Tennessee games. They weren't coming to Tennessee Tech because there really wasn't much to see anyway. But I was really focused. And when I was 19, again, I was a sophomore, and I made a decision coming into that season that I was going to wear a suit to every game. And that sounded really crazy and really ridiculous. One, because I think the last person that had gone to the pros from school was like the mid-'80s. And then, like, I'm wearing this sometimes, these home games, I literally put this suit on, walk across the campus to a stadium that was not even half full every week. And there was no press and any of that sort of stuff. So, like, what was the point? But for me, it was creating a mindset. And the mindset was, hey, the guys that I see on Sundays who are playing in the NFL, they're wearing suits and they're dressed up for the game. So I want to get myself in that mindset. And that's what I did for 3 straight years. I did that home and away, wore this suit. It really seemed ridiculous at the time. But I think that was the start of me putting myself mentally in a place where, like, hey, no matter what, this is what I'm here for. This is what I came to do. And I'm staying focused on that. And so I just kind of really carried that whole mindset all the way through. I only had one shot with one team. I only worked out for one team. That was the Washington Redskins, and took advantage of my opportunity. Now, yeah, some other things happened along the way, some breaks in terms of things that needed to happen in order for me to ultimately make the team. But again, you still have to be prepared to take advantage of those opportunities. And sometimes it's just mental toughness, because you don't know what's going to happen, and you just do everything you can to put yourself in a position to see what happens. And so I think that's definitely related to grit, and it's over a long period of time. It's not one summer, it's not one week, but that was just me preparing myself for 3 or 4 years. Even when people doubted me and said, man, this is ridiculous. Like, I don't even know, like, why you think this is a reality.
I think a lot of servant leaders go through adversity, tons of adversity, because they're in leadership positions that aren't necessarily typical. You were at a school that typically people don't go to the NFL, and you were in a situation in life where typically people don't act. You were doing non-typical things like putting on suits. Can you talk a little bit about getting through adversity despite not being in typical situations, and how we are able to overcome, especially when it comes to serving other people?
Yeah, and please forgive me, Lau, I didn't do the second part of your question about how that has helped me serve my community. So I'll tag that on to what you're just asking right now. I think what that situation taught me in terms of how I serve my community, how I serve the people around me, is that, hey, no obstacle, no barrier, no situation is too tough, too big. It's about making up your mind that you're going to make it happen. When we're out here trying to maybe push for policy changes, or we're trying to help meet needs in our community that might be under-resourced or underprivileged. Or, hey, maybe we're just trying to get our team to change a mindset or to get over a hump or a hurdle. Again, it's just about making a commitment every single day that you don't allow your circumstance, or you don't allow your situation to dictate to you the effort that you're going to put in, the tenacity that you're going to bring, and the consistency. At the end of the day, the leaders who are able to stay on that grind and to maintain that grit over a long period of time are people that actually, make a difference. And, I think the other part about that too is, I think sometimes we quit, and sometimes we even take shortcuts because we're too focused on how hard it is for us, or how we're not getting certain benefits out of it that we would like, or we're not feeling appreciated, or those sorts of things. So anytime you start processing the frustration through your own personal gain. That's when the opportunity to shut it down or cut yourself short or not finish or not go all the way through arises, because you're thinking about yourself first before you're thinking about how you can impact others, and what would happen if you push yourself through and try to make this thing happen.
That is such great advice, servant leaders. We have to think about the people that we're serving, the people that we're in community with. And those are the people that are going to help us push on past the hurts and the pains, the struggles of our life. Some of us are coming into 2019 right now, looking back at 2018 and the goals that we had, and maybe we didn't serve at the level that we wanted. And it might leave us right now down and not feeling really confident about ourselves. But when we start looking at ourselves, we start looking inwardly at our own situations and our own deficiencies. Those are the things that begin to slow us down. We can't jump the hurdle of ourselves sometimes. However, if we use other people as a springboard to allow us to be successful, those are the things that are going to allow us to really grow, to be able to establish ourselves on the strength that other people are counting on us. Other people are looking towards us. Allow someone else's goal to be the catalyst, as we're talking to a leadership catalyst here. Allow them to be the change agent that is going to make us the best servant leader that we can possibly be. Josh, you were talking a little bit about a previous generation as you were wearing suits to those college games, and you were looking to those previous generations that were before you, how they operated and how they acted. We've got a lot of people in generations that are looking back now at the generations of students, and there's a gap. There's something that is missing. You've had a unique impression on people from multiple generations, specifically students in the age demographic that we are dealing with right now here on the Services Power podcast. What's important for previous generations to understand so that they can see and serve students better?
Yeah, I guess I can best answer that in terms of how I interact with all of people. First and foremost, I think we need to be a student ourselves of the communities that we're serving, the audiences that we have the opportunity to engage with. And every generation, I think, is a little bit different and has a different value system, is what I would say. And I think tapping into the values, like, for example, millennials are very cause driven and are concerned about the impact that they're making on the world. And they're also concerned about trend and making sure that what they're investing and how they're investing is actually going to be used properly and going to make an impact, and so forth and so on. So each generation is going to be focused on or have different value systems, and just understanding those value systems that are at play is hugely important. I think you can't be an effective servant without understanding who you're serving, and so I think it's critical to make sure that we're asking questions. I think one of the key ways, and this applies to anybody, I think, in any situations, I think we're so focused on trying to solve the problems or get the solutions or get the answer. I'm not sure that we're spending enough time asking enough questions. I mean, I think asking questions will, help give us the clarity that we need to help, those that we're trying to help. And that spans across all generations, all races, all backgrounds, because we are the same in terms of our being human and wanting to be cared for, but how we express ourselves and how we live our lives and the value systems are different. And you can't understand that without engaging it.
Wow, that is really excellent advice for all of us. Servant leaders, you guys hear me talk a lot about being a phenomenal question asker. And that's not just coming from something that I made up one day. It's because Josh Symonette asked me some of the greatest questions that challenged me at the deepest levels. I'm going to tell you right now, Josh, one of the things about this particular podcast that I'm excited about is that you keep on saying to me, great question. Great question, because really, honestly, that just comes from our interaction, how you've taught me so much. There's this one final question as we start to close this podcast that I'm so excited about asking you. I heard you tell a story. You didn't tell this to me, but I heard you tell a story about being an NFL legend. And somebody referring to you as an NFL legend. And then you kind of was like, hold on, an NFL legend, me? And you were being told why you're an NFL legend, why that applies to you. And in your explanation, you talked about attaching value to outcome. And so could you tell our audience a little bit about that story with you being an NFL legend, and then talk about the answer to the question, why is it important for us to attach value to outcome?
Man, I must be getting old because I can't fully remember the context of that story. I do remember a little bit of what you're talking about. And I think if my memory isn't failing me, I think this whole idea around being a legend or legacy, I would even say we see some successes of programs in college or professional sports that have won recently. We like to throw the word dynasty around and just the dominance and that sort of stuff. And I think what it says is that like we place such a high emphasis on defining success or something being legendary in that way. I think at the end of the day, to me, being legendary is really related to legacy. And have you done the best you can with all that you've been given? Have you maximized that to the best of your ability? The platform that you've been given, the opportunity to serve, and how are you leveraging what you've been given for the sake of other people and not just for the sake of yourself. And I think we overinflate or we devalue investment and time, effort, and energy based on a particular outcome. But man, you can't tell me that Joshua Symonette is not a legend. That's my mother. She invested her life in me. And she invested blood, sweat, and tears, her and my father, making sure that my sister and I got to college and that we had the right value system instilled in us, and that we grew up to become productive citizens and learn the value of being humble and serving others and all those sorts of things. My mother is legendary from that standpoint, and most people would never know her, if they've encountered me or felt like they've been influenced or positively moved by something I've done or said. Hey, that's the direct result of what my parents invested in me. So I would say that that's legendary. And so what I would say to that is that I think we just need to redefine successful outcomes and not just attach them to bigness in terms of quantity or amount. But man, there's been legendary investments and legendary things that have happened that allow us to do what we're able to do that we can't even name because we don't know who those people are.
Servant leaders, I hope you hear what Josh is saying. Prestige is not what builds legends. Legacy is what builds a legend. What builds something that is successful, that is wonderful, that is valuable. What is it that we're leaving behind? What are we investing in? Who are we investing in? And when we see those individuals stand up and become bigger and better than us, we know we have reached legendary status. Hey, Josh, what is a way for us to reach out to you if somebody wants to continue to connect with you after they listen to this amazing podcast episode? How can we reach out to you?
Well, hey, I give you that information. I think first I want to clarify in case people get on the internet and they start Googling. No, I'm not an NFL legend. So please don't go looking on the internet trying to find that because that's not the case. That's the whole point of the question that Lau was asking. But in terms of how people can connect with me, I'm on Facebook. You can just look up Joshua Symonette. That's Symonette. And then I'm also on Instagram. That's the main platform that I'm on. JM, my middle initial, and then my last name, Symonette, Symonette. So you can just hit me up on that. Either one of those platforms, you can send me a message. I'm personally working on some content that I hope gets out at some point this year around humility. So maybe I can come back on the podcast and talk a little bit more about that in the future, Lau. But social media will probably be the best way to get to me.
Fantastic, Josh. Listen, listeners, you also can find Josh Symonette on Pinterest. And I'm telling you right now, his Pinterest game is tight, ladies and gentlemen. This is my guy. Definitely going to have you back on the podcast talking about humility. Thank you so much for coming on, Pastor Josh. I miss you, man. We go come to DC and we go come see you.
Hey, miss you guys too, man. Appreciate you so much. Thank you for what you're doing. And hey, just want to celebrate the fact that you're leveraging your skill set, your platform, your love of people to make people better and make people around you. So thank you for embodying what you want this podcast to be all about. So I really appreciate you, man.
Wow, thanks so much, Josh. Your leadership fingerprints are all over what we do here at the Services Power Podcast. Servant leaders, I'm so excited about what Josh said about his mom, Miss Sharon, that you can't tell him that the investment that she made in him doesn't make her legendary. It's what we do in the lives of other people, how we grow them, how we allow them to be the best version of themselves, the deposits that we're making in the lives of the people that we serve that makes them and us and the service that we're providing them legendary. It's not about us in as much as it's about what they do, who they are, and what their outcomes are. It isn't about our greatness. It's about producing greatness in the lives of the people that we live, that we serve, and that we love. We here at the Services Power Podcast, we want each and every one of you to be legendary in the lives of other people, and we want to help other people become legendary as well. That's why our goal is to have 100,000 subscribers. Not that we can be big, but that we can have 100,000 conversations. Would you help us out wherever you're listening to this thing at? Would you subscribe? Would you like it? But most of all, would you share it with somebody that you want to invest in, that you want to see legendary status grown up in? Thank you so much for 2018. And we are on this train in 2019 and we're rocking and rolling. It is our honor to serve.